start with a confession. I was the applause for Government Office, and because I used to work there, so I feel acutely as many the loss of the Government Office, and as I go through what I have to say about BisLocal, you'll realise that others are beginning to say much the same thing. But I must remember I am on message this morning. If you want me to be off message, have a word with me over lunch and I'll tell you what I'm doing. We were challenged this morning as speakers to be entertaining and informative. Well, I think Richard has taken the cup already for today. He was both of those things. And David, informative, lots I didn't know about health service reforms that I felt I probably should have done, and some quite challenging intellectual debates to be had there. I don't know whether what I've got to say about BisLocal will resonate with many of you in the audience today. I hope it does. I hope you'll all learn something. So the challenge I've probably got is about being entertaining. And I have a daughter who is at the moment preparing for a big Youth Speaks session at her school. So we've been, over the last couple of weeks, preparing speeches and doing lots of rehearsal at home. So when I said yesterday what I was doing today, she said, right, it's your turn, Mum. You're going to rehearse what you're doing tomorrow, and I'm going to mark you against the categories that we are expected to cover in Youth Speaks. And she will mark that there's presentation, eye contact, content, timing, all of those fantastic things that you learn when you go on your presentation skills course. So I duly got my laptop out and went through the PowerPoint with her looking very stern and writing down copious notes on a piece of paper. And at the end, she gave me very good marks for my presentation, for my speed, for my eye contact, for smiling. And then she said, content, Mum, come on. No jokes. She said, and I didn't understand it. So I wouldn't expect her to. She's only 11. But I hope you get it today and understand much of it. And I will tell them this evening there is something even more scary than having somebody mark your performance. And that's having this on the floor behind you, where you've got half the audience looking at you and the other half over your shoulder, and you're thinking, God, what are they saying about me? Is it any good? Am I going down well? So I should be interested afterwards to see what you have made of me. Right, so context, what is BisLocal all about, and current priorities and challenges. When I see this is something that pops up on my laptop when I log into my Biz. Does anybody even know what Biz? Does anyone not know what it stands for? I suppose it's up there. Business innovation and skills. Quite a big part. Okay, test question. Audience participation. That was the other thing that my daughter pulled me up on. No audience participation. So here we go. If I can tell her I can do it. Who's the minister in Biz who's got responsibility for social enterprise? Got more. There it is. There it is. But even I have to look it up. It's Ed Davey.
Working well,
you may say that. I couldn't possibly comment. But yes, he is a minister with the social enterprise. I also did a quick search on our intranet of social purpose organisations, which is the Southwest Forum flag as their area of interest, returned 0 responses. So it's quite telling. Social enterprise rather better, I mean considerable number of references to social enterprise, but not a huge amount in terms of policy. but I may say more about that in a minute. So when I get this up on my laptop these days, it reminds me about Christmas and jigsaw puzzles. When I was a little girl, we used to go to my grandmother's for Christmas, and there was always a huge jigsaw puzzle that was in preparation on a huge table. And it was, I don't know, 5,000 pieces or something, a beautiful cottage. I'm not sure I ever saw it actually completed. There were always one or two bits missing. But after she died, the jigsaw puzzle was taken apart and then transferred to one other member of the family where we used to go for Christmas. We didn't have a table quite big enough to get it all out, so there were always bits hanging off the edge. And some months ago, I found this jigsaw puzzle in a box of things that I'd inherited when my mother died. And I'm determined this year to get the puzzle out at Christmas. But I suspect what's going to happen is I haven't got a table big enough for the jigsaw puzzle. I've looked in the box, there are one or two clumps. You always do that in a jigsaw puzzle. One or two clumps that are stayed together. Nobody's quite been able to bear to break up the bit that was really, really hard to put together, and it's there in the box. And actually, the picture on the front is a bit torn, bits missing. So we have a challenge this Christmas to try to put this puzzle together for nostalgia's sake. And it reminds me about what life actually feels like at the moment, post this government, for many of us. There was a huge jigsaw puzzle, it was never really completed. We did have a bit of a picture, we thought we knew what it was going to look like. We quite liked the picture on the box, particularly bits of it, you know, the roses around the door, the cat by the watering can, nice little bits. But somebody broke it up. And while they've carefully put some of the chunks in the box, the rest is in pieces. Some are missing, we know that for sure, and the picture on the front is really not very good. And in our family at least, there are far fewer of us to put that puzzle together this Christmas. So I'm thinking pictures, and I think that's quite a nice analogy for the way I'm feeling at the moment, and the way I think I'm getting some nods. The landscape feels to many of us at the moment. So that's my policy strap word, growth. So there's a new economic landscape, local solutions for local issues. I can feel Richard cringing in his chair. I'll say a bit more about local enterprise partnerships in a minute. We've got centralisation of some things where that makes sense, and Business Link is one of the key things, and I will say more about that. Much greater emphasis on private sector growth and rebalancing the economy. Fast pace of policy change. Even since I started this role back in April, enterprise zones have popped up. We've got a big new cities agenda. The Growing Places Fund was announced a couple of weeks ago. So very fast changing, lots of new things going on, but overall, obviously, as we all know, far less money. So what's BIS doing? Well, we're engaged in unlocking growth through a whole raft of things: enterprise zones, apprenticeships, business support, significant one, major planning policy reform through the National Planning Policy Framework. And this is particularly acute with our private sector partners around the presumption in favour of sustainable development. Other tax and regulatory measures, and of course local government resource reviews as well. The BisLocal model, very different from the resource that used to go into government offices. We now have 6 very small teams based outside Whitehall. Our main mission, driving forward local economic growth, ensuring that the local business environment is as good as it can be, and we're not a reinvention of RDAs or government offices in any form. My job now is much more focused and much more refined than it was in government office days. Hope you can all see that. So look at the coloured lines. That's the 6 footprints. We've heard that word already today. The 6 footprints for BisLocal in terms of geography. So local, to me, means south, central and west. So that's everything from West Sussex to the Isles of Scilly, and from Gloucestershire down to Bournemouth and Poole. So very local. A little bit about our team. Our director, Ian Coates, who leads us out of the Guildford office and who's got particular responsibility for West of England, Buckinghamshire and Surrey. And the reason for him taking on those particular responsibilities is West of England is obviously our largest city in the patch and a significant driver of growth. And Buckinghamshire and Surrey have been, and still are to a certain extent, white space on our local enterprise partnership map. So I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. I have colleagues in the Guildford office who look after most of the eastern side of our patch, and then in the Bristol office, me, my patch, Cornwall, Isles of Scilly, heart of the South West and Dorset, and Paul Shand, my colleague who looks after Gloucestershire, Swindon, Wiltshire and West of England. And we back each other up. So in effect, with us and Mike, who does a bit of research and briefing for us, there are three of us looking after the whole of the old South West region from a biz perspective. We will have a couple of business-facing staff recruited from RDAs, one of whom we know, Yvonne Ward, who is an aerospace expert, and the other who you know as of tomorrow, who will join us doing a business relationship role, so very much at the sharp end of an account management role, if you like, for some of the larger and more strategic businesses across this part of the world. So that's who we are. What will success look like for us? Sadly, economic shocks becoming increasingly the norm in terms of headlines, and happily there has been very much for me to do so far. We've had a flurry around Augusta Westland, BAE Systems, and Royal Navy at Edgington in the last couple of months. But I embrace all the time those headlines of hundreds of job losses and significant impact on local communities. And should that happen, then my job gets turned upside down in a moment, and my top priority becomes working for Biz to make sure that we have the best possible response to those shocks. Most of my time is spent in identifying and realising economic opportunity, and that manifests itself really in terms of looking into barriers for growth. What is it that's stopping that growth happening? We can't do too much about finding public sources of funding. There is some around, which I'll mention in a moment, but a lot of it is actually about failures of legislation or regulation, failures of coordination between government agencies, lack of partnership working, lack of facilitation of just bringing people together. So a lot of what I do in terms of a phrase I hate, which is barrier busting, is about trying to get those barriers removed so that growth, latent growth that is there, and that the private sector in particular is prepared to invest in, actually takes place. And in turn, I take all of that back into Whitehall, and I'm there on a regular basis to try to influence new policy. So as ministers are thinking through, at the moment the critical thing is the autumn statement on the 29th of November. What are we going to say about growth? What's the story? What's the plan? How are we going to do something to support those parts of the country that need it most? All of what I've been gathering over the last 6 to 8 months in terms of what works here, what's happening that's going well, what's happening that's a barrier to growth, that gets fed into that policy development. So our focus to date has been around building relationships, helping LEPs establish, bidding for available funding, and there is some around, responding to shocks, supporting ministers, and using our local knowledge to support emerging policy. We don't have lots of money, we don't have performance levers, all the targets have been pretty much swept away, but what we do have are relationships and influence. On our to-do list, supporting established LEPs, enterprise zone bids, none in this part of the world, but we have one down in Cornwall. Work on key sectors, and intelligence for the growth review. Again, that's feeding into the autumn statement, and I've been particularly involved around some rural and infrastructure intelligence to feed into the growth review. So there's our partners, social enterprise down there. This is taken from a generic presentation which probably not recognised social purpose organisations in the round. And I would say probably reflects business interest very much in social enterprise. Other government departments, and the irony here is that the increasing part of my job is working with other bits of Whitehall in this part of the world. The outriders are coming back, so DFT, Department of Transport, Department for Communities and Local Government, Cabinet Office, all have people, and when we get together we say, oh, perhaps we should all get together and work in a government office. Collect map. 2 bits of white space in our part of the world. We think we've filled in Buckinghamshire. Surrey is proving a bit more intractable, but the aim is for ministers to have in place a complete coverage of local enterprise partnerships very shortly. So what are they? They should have a clear vision and strategic leadership for private sector-led growth. Prioritise ruthlessly, something that is a theme that keeps coming up time and time again wherever you go. Ruthless prioritisation, I'm sure it's the same for you too. I need to make a difference. Engaging widely, and I hope that the messages I hear from you later will be around your LEPs are beginning to listen, they are beginning to take account of what you have to say. They have modest capacity and start-up funds, and they now have, as of last week, something called the Growing Places Fund, but that is very much about capital costs of unlocking infrastructure as opposed to capacity for organisations. But that's this is the test for LEPs. If they spend this money wisely, maybe there will be more to come. So the way I see it, the challenge is for you. There are some big policy debates going on. I liked a lot of and recognised a lot of what Richard had to say about bullies with money and that sort of thing. And very much the hands-off, okay, it's over to you. Local problems, local solutions. We don't have a blueprint anymore. We don't have any money. We don't have much capacity to support you. It's up to you. That's my official message to LEPs. LEPs still very early days and they have variable priorities. The vital link, you probably will all have seen this, and that was a précis of where LEPs have got to in terms of their engagement with social purpose organisations. I'd like to think the story's better a few months on. Again, you can tell me later. Your case is compelling, but who knows? Where's your voice in all of this? Where's your representation? I get it, I've been around here a while, I know lots of people in the room, but those who don't get it, your unexpected champions that you really need to have on LEP boards, for example, and in other places, where are they and who are they? And be clear what you want. Ruthless prioritisation, I think you may have a very long wish list. I think you've got to look at that and say, we're not going to get all of it, what are the absolute mission critical things that we need to have and focus on those. So, if you haven't got a chance to speak to me today or later on, email me. I am always happy to hear whatever you've got to say. If it's not something I can help with, I can certainly help plug you into other bits of Whitehall. So I won't ask you to score me, X Factor style. I'm now going to sit down and have a look at this. Thank you.